The people who effortlessly transform their deepest pain into their greatest strength know something that the rest of us are missing. It's not what you think, and it's definitely not what they teach in traditional psychology or self-help approaches. Stay with me, because this changes everything about how you understand adversity, growth, and the hidden potential locked inside your most difficult experiences. What if I told you that the very experiences you're trying hardest to avoid, heal from, or get over are actually the raw materials for developing capabilities that can't be acquired any other way? Most people spend their entire lives running from suffering, seeking comfort, and wondering why they feel weak and unfulfilled despite their efforts to eliminate pain from their experience. Meanwhile, there's a small group of individuals who have discovered something profound. Suffering isn't the opposite of strength, it's the forge where authentic power is created. They've learned to alchemize their deepest wounds into wisdom, their greatest losses into unshakable resilience, and their most painful experiences into the very qualities that make them magnetic, influential, and genuinely helpful to others. By the time we're finished, you'll understand exactly how to transform any form of suffering into rocket fuel for your personal evolution. This isn't about glorifying pain or seeking out difficulty. It's about recognizing that since suffering is inevitable in human life, you might as well learn to extract maximum value from experiences you're going to have anyway. What I'm about to share will challenge everything you believe about healing, growth, and what it actually takes to develop the kind of inner strength that no external circumstance can shake. This approach has been used by mystics, warriors, entrepreneurs, and artists throughout history to turn their greatest disadvantages into their most powerful assets. Have you noticed how the more effort you put into avoiding, eliminating, or getting over painful experiences, the more these experiences seem to control and define your life? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on escape rather than understanding the deeper function that suffering serves in human development. Picture this scenario that plays out in countless lives. Something painful happens. Maybe a relationship ends, you face a serious health challenge, you experience financial loss, or you encounter criticism that cuts deep. Your immediate instinct is completely understandable. You want the pain to stop. So you throw yourself into healing work, positive thinking, distraction activities, or anything that promises to help you move past this experience and return to feeling good again. You might spend months or years in therapy processing the trauma, reading self-help books about overcoming adversity, attending workshops on healing and recovery, or diving into spiritual practices that promise to transcend suffering altogether. But despite all this effort and investment, you notice something frustrating. The pain keeps returning in different forms, the same patterns keep repeating in your life, and despite all your healing work, you still feel fundamentally shaped and limited by experiences you thought you had resolved. What's even more confusing is that you meet people who seem to have been through similar or even worse experiences, but somehow they radiate a strength, wisdom, and presence that feels completely different from your own ongoing struggle with the effects of your pain. They don't seem to be constantly managing or recovering from their difficult experiences. Instead, these experiences appear to have somehow enhanced rather than diminished their capacity for joy, connection, and contribution. This creates what psychologists call the healing paradox. The more energy you invest in trying to eliminate the effects of suffering from your life, the more central these experiences become to your identity and daily experience. You become someone who is defined by what you're healing from, rather than someone who has integrated difficult experiences into a larger story of growth and capability. The real issue isn't that your healing approaches are wrong or that you're doing something incorrectly. The issue is that most healing models are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what suffering actually is and what it's designed to accomplish in human development. They treat pain as purely destructive rather than recognizing its profound developmental function. Most people approach suffering like it's a medical condition to cure, rather than recognizing it as an intensive course in developing capacities that simply can't be acquired through comfortable experiences. They try to return to who they were before the difficult experience, rather than allowing themselves to become who they're meant to be because of it. The deeper root cause of suffering's persistence isn't the original painful experience itself, it's resistance to the transformation that the experience is trying to catalyze. When you fight against the changes that suffering is inviting, you create a state of internal conflict that can persist for years or decades after the original event has passed. Consider what happens when a seed is planted in soil. The seed must essentially die to its original form in order to become a plant. If the seed somehow resisted this dissolution, it would never access its potential for growth and flowering. Similarly, many forms of human suffering represent invitations to release limiting aspects of your identity so that more authentic and capable versions of yourself can emerge. The most exhausting aspect of the avoidance approach is how it creates a split in your psyche between the part of you that wants to grow and the part that wants to return to previous comfort levels. You end up fighting against your own evolutionary impulses, which is why so much healing work feels like swimming upstream rather than flowing with natural currents. What's truly limiting about seeing suffering as purely negative is how it prevents you from accessing the specific wisdom, strength, and capabilities that your particular brand of pain is designed to develop. Every form of suffering contains unique gifts that can only be unwrapped by moving through the experience rather than around it. The questions that matter most are these. What if your suffering isn't something wrong with you, but something working for you? What if the pain you're trying to heal from contains exactly the medicine you need for your next level of evolution? What if learning to work with suffering rather than against it could transform you into someone more powerful, wise, and genuinely helpful than you ever imagined possible? When you begin to explore these possibilities honestly, everything shifts about how you relate to difficulty and what becomes possible through embracing rather than avoiding your most challenging experiences. Let me tell you about Dr. Viktor Frankl, who discovered the secret to transforming suffering into power during humanity's darkest hour, and used this discovery to help millions of people find meaning in their own pain. Frankl was a successful psychiatrist and neurologist in Vienna when the Nazis invaded Austria in 1938. Within a few years, he, his wife, and his parents were imprisoned in concentration camps where they faced unimaginable suffering, deprivation, and the constant threat of death. During his 3 years in the camps, Frankl witnessed something that would revolutionize his understanding of human psychology. He observed that among prisoners facing identical horrific conditions, some people seemed to deteriorate rapidly and lose all hope, while others maintained their dignity, helped fellow prisoners, and somehow found ways to grow stronger even in the midst of extreme suffering. The difference wasn't in their external circumstances, which were equally terrible for everyone. The difference was in how they related to their suffering and what meaning they extracted from their experiences. Those who collapsed saw their pain as purely destructive and focused all their energy on hoping for rescue or return to their previous lives. Those who thrived had learned to see their suffering as a test of their character and an opportunity to discover capabilities they never knew they possessed. Frankl himself chose to use his imprisonment as an intensive laboratory for understanding human resilience and developing psychological insights that could help others. Instead of just trying to survive, he made his suffering meaningful by using it to develop theories and practices that he knew could benefit humanity if he survived to share them. He secretly wrote notes on scraps of paper, memorized lectures he wanted to give, and conducted informal therapy sessions with fellow prisoners. When Frankl was finally liberated, he had lost his wife, parents, and virtually everything else that had mattered to him before the war. But he had gained something invaluable, a profound understanding of how human beings can find meaning and strength in any circumstance, no matter how difficult. He had transformed his suffering into a gift for the world. Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, became one of the most influential works of the 20th century, helping millions of people discover how to extract purpose and power from their own painful experiences. But more importantly for understanding the principle we're exploring, Frankl's time in the concentration camps didn't just teach him about resilience. It created capabilities in him that never could have developed through comfortable academic study alone. The compassion, wisdom, and practical understanding that made Franco such an effective therapist and influential author emerged specifically from his willingness to find meaning in extreme suffering rather than just trying to survive it. His greatest professional contributions were direct products of his worst personal experiences, transformed through conscious engagement rather than avoidance. This reveals the fundamental principle that changes everything about how we understand adversity. Suffering becomes a secret weapon when you learn to metabolize it into wisdom, strength, and service rather than just trying to eliminate its effects from your life. The same experiences that can destroy people who resist them can become sources of profound power for those who learn to work with them consciously. Like carbon that becomes diamond under extreme pressure, or metal that becomes steel through intense heat, human consciousness can undergo alchemical transformations through suffering that create capacities far beyond what's possible through comfort alone. But this transformation requires conscious participation rather than passive endurance or active resistance. Here's what transforms everything about working with suffering. Pain becomes power when you shift from asking, "How do I get rid of this?" to asking, "How do I grow through this in ways that serve not just my healing, but my contribution to the world?" This reframe unlocks the transformational potential that suffering contains while preventing it from becoming merely destructive. Let me tell you about Maya Angelou, who discovered this principle through experiences that could have destroyed her, but instead became the foundation for her extraordinary impact on literature and human consciousness. Angelou's childhood was marked by trauma so severe that she became selectively mute for nearly 5 years, speaking only to her brother after being sexually abused and then witnessing the death of her abuser. For years, young Maya carried the belief that her words had killed a man, creating a profound disconnection from her own voice and power. Traditional approaches might have focused on helping her get over this trauma and return to normal speech patterns. But what actually happened was far more profound. During her years of silence, Maya developed an extraordinary relationship with literature, poetry, and the internal landscape of human experience. Her forced silence became a kind of intensive training in listening, observing, and developing the rich inner life that would later make her one of the most powerful voices in American literature. Instead of trying to eliminate the effects of her trauma, Maya learned to transform her wound into a gift. Her deep understanding of pain became the source of her ability to speak healing words that resonated with millions of people who had experienced similar suffering. The muteness that could have been seen as purely pathological became the foundation for developing a relationship with language and voice that was more profound than anything she might have developed through normal childhood experiences. Her trauma taught her that words have power to hurt and heal, creating a reverence for communication that informed every aspect of her later work. When Maya finally began speaking again, it wasn't just a return to normal function, it was the emergence of a voice that had been forged through suffering into something capable of extraordinary beauty and healing power. Her famous autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, helped countless people understand how personal pain can be transformed into universal wisdom that serves the healing of others. This transformation didn't happen through avoiding or minimizing her traumatic experiences, but through what she called digesting them, consciously working with the pain until it became medicine, not just for herself, but for anyone who encountered her work. Maya's greatest strengths as a writer, speaker, and human being emerged directly from her willingness to find meaning and purpose within her most difficult experiences. The counterintuitive truth Maya's life demonstrates is that suffering processed consciously doesn't just heal you, it develops capacities for wisdom, compassion, and service that become available to help others navigate similar challenges. Your pain becomes medicine when you learn to extract its gifts rather than just eliminating its symptoms. While most people try to heal by returning to who they were before painful experiences, true transformation involves becoming someone new, someone who has integrated the lessons and strengths that can only emerge through consciously engaging with difficulty. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering, but it does mean recognizing that since pain is inevitable, you might as well mine it for maximum value. The principle works because consciousness has the capacity to transform any experience into wisdom when approached with the right orientation. Just as your body can convert food into energy and strength, your psyche can convert suffering into insight, resilience, and the ability to help others. But this transformation requires conscious participation rather than passive endurance. Think of how a pearl forms inside an oyster. The pearl isn't created despite the irritation of sand, it's created because of it. The oyster's response to irritation creates something beautiful and valuable that wouldn't exist without the original discomfort. Similarly, human consciousness can respond to the irritation of suffering by creating wisdom and strength that wouldn't emerge through comfortable experiences alone. This understanding transforms every moment of pain from something to escape into something to mine for its hidden gifts. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you begin to see yourself as an alchemist who can transform any experience into gold. This doesn't eliminate the reality of pain, but it prevents suffering from being merely destructive by ensuring it becomes generative of new capacities. The most profound aspect of this approach is that it creates meaning from experiences that might otherwise feel senseless or purely negative. When you can find ways to serve others through the wisdom gained from your own suffering, even the most difficult experiences become part of a larger story of growth and contribution rather than just random misfortune. When you understand that suffering can be transformed into service, everything changes about how you relate to your own pain and what becomes possible through engaging with it consciously rather than just trying to eliminate it from your experience. The foundation of transforming suffering into strength rests on four interconnected pillars that work together to extract maximum value from painful experiences, while preventing them from becoming merely destructive or overwhelming. Unlike approaches that focus on eliminating pain, these foundations help you develop the capacity to metabolize difficulty into wisdom, resilience, and enhanced ability to contribute meaningfully to the world. Foundation 1. Meaning-making. The first foundation involves developing the capacity to find purpose and significance within your suffering rather than just trying to understand why it happened or how to make it stop. Meaning-making transforms pain from random misfortune into raw material for developing capabilities and insights that serve both your growth and your ability to help others navigate similar challenges. Meaning-making starts with asking different questions during difficult experiences. What is this teaching me that I couldn't learn any other way? How might this experience be preparing me for contributions I can't yet imagine? What qualities of character am I developing through navigating this challenge? These questions shift your relationship with pain from victim to student, which immediately changes your emotional and energetic relationship with whatever you're facing. This foundation includes learning to distinguish between pain that serves growth and suffering that's merely repetitive or destructive. Not all painful experiences automatically generate wisdom. The transformation happens through conscious engagement with the lessons and opportunities that difficulty presents. Some pain teaches compassion, some develops resilience, some reveals authentic priorities, and some shows you capabilities you didn't know you possessed. Practice meaning-making by maintaining what could be called a wisdom journal during challenging periods where you document insights, capabilities, and character developments that are emerging through your current struggles. Notice how facing uncertainty is teaching you to trust your inner guidance, how dealing with loss is showing you what truly matters, how handling criticism is strengthening your connection to authentic self-worth. Meaning-making also involves connecting your personal suffering to larger purposes that feel genuinely significant to you. When your pain becomes part of preparing you to help others, contribute to causes you care about, or develop qualities that serve something beyond immediate personal comforts, it transforms from meaningless affliction into meaningful training. The goal isn't to minimize genuine difficulty or pretend that pain doesn't hurt, but to ensure that your suffering is productive rather than merely repetitive. When you can consistently extract meaning from challenging experiences, you develop confidence that you can handle whatever life presents because each difficulty becomes a contribution to your growing wisdom and capability. Foundation 2. Conscious processing. The second foundation focuses on developing sophisticated methods for working with painful emotions, traumatic memories, and overwhelming experiences in ways that promote integration rather than avoidance or re-traumatization. Conscious processing means learning to feel your feelings fully while maintaining enough awareness to extract their gifts rather than just being overwhelmed by their intensity. Conscious processing starts with understanding that emotions aren't problems to solve, but information to receive and energy to channel constructively. Pain often carries valuable messages about what needs attention, what values are being violated, or what changes would better serve your authentic development. When you can listen to emotional pain rather than just trying to eliminate it, you access guidance that isn't available through purely rational analysis. This foundation includes developing what trauma therapists call window of tolerance, the capacity to remain present with difficult emotions without becoming overwhelmed or dissociated. You learn to feel intensely without losing your center, to process deeply without becoming lost in drama, and to honor your emotional reality while maintaining perspective on the larger context of your life and growth. Practice conscious processing by creating regular time and space for deliberately engaging with whatever emotions are present without trying to fix, change, or analyze them immediately. This might involve journaling about your feelings, moving your body to help process emotional energy, creative expression that gives form to internal experiences, or simply sitting quietly with whatever is arising in your emotional landscape. Conscious processing also involves learning to distinguish between feeling emotions and being controlled by them. You can experience anger fully while choosing not to attack others, feel sadness completely while maintaining hope for the future, or acknowledge fear without letting it determine your actions. This emotional maturity allows you to extract the information and energy from feelings without being derailed by their intensity. The goal is developing the capacity to move emotional energy through your system rather than storing it as chronic tension, unprocessed trauma, or repetitive mental patterns. When difficult emotions can flow through you cleanly, they become sources of power and wisdom rather than ongoing problems to manage. Foundation 3, growth integration. The third foundation involves systematically identifying and developing the specific capabilities, insights, and character qualities that emerge through engaging with your particular forms of suffering. Growth integration means recognizing that different types of challenges develop different strengths and learning to consciously cultivate whatever your specific pain is designed to teach you. Growth integration starts with understanding that suffering isn't random, but often targets exactly the areas where you most need to develop greater capacity. Relationship challenges develop emotional intelligence and communication skills. Health issues often teach body awareness and lifestyle wisdom. Financial difficulties can develop resourcefulness and clarify authentic priorities. Professional setbacks frequently reveal talents and directions that wouldn't have emerged through continuous success. This foundation includes learning to see yourself as actively developing specific capabilities rather than just passively enduring unwanted experiences. When you approach challenges as training programs for developing qualities you need for your next level of contribution, you engage with them more intelligently and extract greater value from the difficulty involved. Practice growth integration by identifying the specific strengths and insights that are emerging through your current challenges and consciously working to develop these qualities further. If you're learning patience through dealing with chronic illness, find additional ways to practice patience in other areas of your life. If loss is teaching you what you truly value, make decisions that better align with these clarified priorities. Growth integration also involves recognizing how the capabilities you develop through your own suffering prepare you to help others navigate similar challenges. Your personal growth becomes a form of service preparation, which gives additional meaning to difficult experiences and helps you maintain motivation for continuing to work with them consciously. The goal is ensuring that every significant challenge you face leaves you stronger, wiser, and more capable than before, rather than just depleted or traumatized. When you can systematically convert suffering into enhanced capability, you become genuinely grateful for experiences that initially felt purely negative. Foundation 4, service transformation. The fourth foundation involves learning to transform the wisdom and strength gained through your suffering into contributions that serve others and create positive change in the world. Service transformation means recognizing that your pain processed consciously becomes medicine not just for your own healing, but for anyone who encounters your story, presence, or work. Service transformation starts with understanding that the most powerful teachers, healers, and leaders are often those who have learned to transform their own wounds into gifts for others. Your particular brand of suffering has developed specific insights and capabilities that are exactly what some people need to navigate their own similar challenges. When you share your wisdom appropriately, you give meaning to your pain by using it to help reduce suffering for others. This foundation includes learning to share your story and insights in ways that inspire and empower others rather than just seeking sympathy or validation for your struggles. There's a profound difference between talking about your pain as a victim and sharing your journey as a guide who can help others find their way through similar territory. Practice service transformation by looking for opportunities to use the wisdom gained through your suffering to help others who are facing similar challenges. This might involve mentoring people through difficult transitions, creating content that shares your insights, volunteering with organizations that serve people in situations you've navigated, or simply being more present and helpful to friends and family members who are struggling. Service transformation also involves recognizing that your mere presence and way of being can be healing for others, regardless of whether you're actively trying to help them. When you've genuinely integrated difficult experiences rather than just surviving them, you radiate a quality of strength and wisdom that gives others permission to believe they can navigate their own challenges. The goal is ensuring that your suffering contributes to reducing suffering in the world rather than just adding to it. When your pain becomes a source of service, even the most difficult experiences become part of a larger story of healing and contribution that gives meaning to everything you've endured. These four foundations work synergistically to create comprehensive transformation of suffering into strength. When you can find meaning in your challenges, process them consciously, integrate their growth gifts, and transform your insights into service, you develop the kind of resilience and wisdom that serves not just your own life, but contributes to the healing of everyone around you. Transforming suffering into strength requires consistent daily practices that systematically help you extract maximum value from challenging experiences while preventing them from becoming merely destructive or overwhelming. These practices are designed to work with the natural intelligence of consciousness to metabolize pain into wisdom, resilience, and enhanced capacity for contribution. Morning intention setting. Begin each day by consciously connecting with your commitment to growth through whatever experiences arise, including difficult ones. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering, but rather setting the intention to learn and develop through whatever challenges present themselves naturally. Spend 5 to 10 minutes each morning reflecting on how you want to engage with any difficulties that might emerge during the day. During this morning practice, ask yourself questions like, how do I want to respond to pain or setbacks today? And what qualities do I want to develop through whatever challenges I encounter? This intentional orientation helps you approach difficulties as opportunities for growth rather than just problems to avoid or endure passively. Reflect on any current challenges you're facing and set specific intentions for how you want to work with them today. Perhaps it's, I will look for the lesson in this relationship conflict, or I will practice patience while dealing with this health issue, or I will stay open to what this financial pressure might be teaching me about my values and priorities. Connect with your deeper purposes and how your current struggles might be preparing you to contribute more meaningfully to the world. When suffering feels connected to service, it becomes much easier to engage with it constructively rather than just trying to eliminate it as quickly as possible. Real-time alchemy practice. Throughout the day, when you encounter any form of pain, discomfort, or difficulty, practice what could be called conscious alchemy, immediately asking what this experience might be trying to teach you or how it might be developing capabilities you need for your growth and contribution. When facing frustration, disappointment, criticism, or any other form of emotional pain, pause before reacting and ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What might I learn from engaging with this consciously rather than just trying to make it go away? This shift from resistance to curiosity transforms your relationship with difficulty in real time. Practice distinguishing between pain that carries useful information versus suffering that's merely repetitive or self-indulgent. Not all emotional discomfort is equally valuable. Some pain teaches important lessons, while other suffering just reinforces limiting patterns. Learn to engage consciously with productive pain while releasing unproductive suffering. When you notice yourself falling into victim consciousness about your challenges, practice consciously shifting to student consciousness by asking, how is this experience developing me? What capabilities am I building through navigating this difficulty? How might this challenge be preparing me for future contributions? Document insights and observations about how your current challenges are developing specific qualities or revealing important information about your authentic priorities, relationships, or direction in life. This creates a running record of how suffering is being transformed into wisdom. Emotional intelligence development. Develop sophisticated skills for working with intense emotions in ways that honor their information while preventing them from becoming overwhelming or destructive. This includes learning to feel deeply without losing your center and to process emotional energy consciously rather than storing it as chronic tension or unprocessed trauma. When strong emotions arise in response to painful experiences, practice what therapists call RAIN. Recognize what you're feeling. Allow the emotion to be present without trying to change it immediately. Investigate what the feeling might be trying to communicate and nurture yourself with appropriate self-compassion while you process the experience. Create regular time for deliberately engaging with whatever emotions are present without trying to fix or eliminate them. This might involve journaling about your feelings, physical movement that helps process emotional energy, creative expression that gives form to internal experiences, or meditation practices that develop capacity for staying present with intensity. Practice sharing your emotional reality appropriately with trusted friends, family members, or professional supporters in ways that seek understanding and connection rather than just sympathy or solutions. Learning to communicate authentically about your struggles helps prevent isolation while building relationships based on genuine intimacy. Meaning construction work. Regularly engage in practices specifically designed to extract meaning, purpose, and wisdom from your difficult experiences. This involves asking profound questions about how your challenges might be serving your development and preparation for meaningful contribution to the world. Keep a dedicated journal for exploring the deeper significance of your current struggles. Ask questions like, what is this experience teaching me about myself, others, or life? How is this challenge developing qualities I didn't know I needed? What wisdom am I gaining that might help others navigate similar difficulties? Practice reframing your struggles from problems that shouldn't be happening to training programs that are developing exactly the capabilities you need for your next level of growth and service. This doesn't minimize genuine difficulty, but ensures that pain serves development rather than just creating depletion. Look for connections between your current challenges and larger purposes or contributions that matter to you. How might your experience with health issues prepare you to help others with similar conditions? How could your relationship struggles develop the emotional intelligence needed for the work you're called to do? How might financial challenges be teaching you about what actually creates security and abundance? Evening integration reflection. End each day with conscious reflection on how you worked with any difficulties or challenges that arose, what you learned about yourself and life through these experiences, and how you might apply these insights to tomorrow's practice. Review moments when you successfully transformed frustration into patience, disappointment into clarity about your values, or criticism into stronger connection to your authentic self. Celebrate progress in developing the capacity to find gifts within challenges rather than just surviving them. Notice patterns in what types of situations trigger reactive responses versus which ones you're learning to navigate with greater wisdom and grace. Use this information to prepare for similar challenges in the future and to identify areas where you want to focus additional development work. Reflect specifically on how your current struggles might be preparing you for future contributions or developing qualities that will serve not just your own growth, but your ability to help others. Connect your personal development through difficulty to larger purposes that give meaning to the challenge involved. Weekly deep processing. Once a week, engage in longer practices specifically focused on consciously working with any significant suffering or challenges in your life. This might involve extended journaling, therapeutic conversations, creative expression, spiritual practice, or time in nature that helps you process experiences too complex for daily practices. Use this weekly time to address any suffering that feels stuck or repetitive rather than generative of new insights and capabilities. Sometimes, pain needs additional attention and processing before it can be transformed into wisdom and strength. Consider working with a therapist, counselor, spiritual teacher, or wise friend who can help you navigate complex emotional terrain safely and effectively. Professional support can be invaluable for learning to work with suffering in ways that promote healing and growth rather than re-traumatization. Plan specific experiments for the coming week based on insights that emerged from your current challenges. If you're learning about boundaries through relationship difficulties, how might you practice healthier boundaries in other areas of your life? If loss is teaching you about what truly matters, how can you align your choices more closely with these clarified values? These daily practices work together to create comprehensive transformation of suffering into strength over time. Rather than just trying to eliminate pain from your experience, you develop the capacity to consistently extract wisdom, resilience, and enhance capability from whatever challenges life presents, ensuring that no experience is ever wasted. This integration involves developing the capacity to share your story and insights in ways that inspire hope and practical wisdom without overwhelming others with the intensity of your experiences. You learn to offer your hard-won understanding as guidance while respecting others' need to find their own way through their unique challenges. Advanced wounded healer work includes learning to recognize when someone would benefit from hearing about your similar experiences versus when they need different kinds of support. Not everyone is ready to see the transformational potential within their current suffering, and skilled healers develop sensitivity to others' readiness for different types of insight and encouragement. Your own continued growth through difficulty becomes essential for maintaining effectiveness as a healer or guide. You can only take others as far as you've gone yourself, which means remaining open to your own ongoing transformation through whatever challenges arise in your life. This path requires developing strong boundaries and self-care practices because working intimately with others' pain can trigger your own unresolved suffering. Advanced practitioners learn to remain present with others' difficulties without taking on their emotional burdens or becoming depleted through overgiving. Collective trauma transformation. As your individual capacity for transforming suffering develops, you naturally become drawn to addressing larger patterns of collective pain and trauma that affect families, communities, organizations, or entire cultures. This work involves applying the principles of conscious suffering transformation to systems rather than just individuals. Advanced collective work includes understanding how unprocessed trauma gets passed between generations and learning to interrupt these transmission patterns through your own healing and conscious parenting, mentoring, or community involvement. When you heal your own ancestral trauma patterns, you often break cycles that have persisted for generations. This mastery involves developing skills for helping groups process collective difficulties, whether organizational challenges, community traumas, or cultural wounds, in ways that generate wisdom and resilience rather than just perpetuating victim consciousness or blame patterns. You learn to recognize how collective suffering often creates opportunities for communities to develop greater compassion, resilience, and cooperation, but only when engaged with conscious leadership that can hold space for transformation rather than just crisis management. Advanced collective work also involves using your personal understanding of suffering to contribute to social healing movements, policy development, or cultural shifts that address root causes of unnecessary pain rather than just treating symptoms. Your transformed relationship with suffering often leads to breakthrough creative expression that serves both personal healing and collective inspiration. Advanced practitioners learn to channel their processed pain into art, writing, music, or other creative forms that help others find meaning and hope within their own challenges. This creative mastery involves developing the capacity to transform even your most private pain into universal art that speaks to shared human experiences without becoming self-indulgent or merely cathartic. The goal is creating work that serves others' healing and growth rather than just processing your own emotions. Advanced creative work with suffering often involves what artists call transmutation, transforming the raw energy of pain into beauty, wisdom, or inspiration that uplifts rather than just expressing anguish. This requires sophisticated skills for working with emotional intensity while maintaining artistic vision and craft. Your creative expression becomes a form of service when it helps others feel less alone in their struggles, provides new perspectives on common human challenges, or demonstrates possibilities for transformation that inspire hope during difficult times. This path also involves learning to create from your scars rather than your wounds, sharing the wisdom and beauty that emerge from processed pain rather than expressing unhealed trauma that might re-traumatize others or yourself. Advanced leadership through adversity also understands how to create psychological safety for others to be honest about their struggles rather than maintaining facades of perfection. This authenticity creates environments where genuine healing and growth can occur rather than just performance management. Legacy of transformation. The ultimate expression of suffering transformed into strength is the legacy you create through your responses to life's challenges over time. This legacy isn't about fame or recognition, but about the positive influence that ripples out from a life that has consistently found meaning and growth through even the most difficult experiences. Every time you transform pain into wisdom, suffering into service, or trauma into compassion, you contribute to healing patterns of despair and victimhood that limit human potential. Your example of what's possible when someone learns to work consciously with suffering creates permission and inspiration for others to approach their own pain as potential medicine rather than just misfortune. Your legacy is created through countless moments where you chose growth over complaint, service over self-pity, meaning over meaninglessness, and transformation over mere survival. These choices accumulate to create a life that demonstrates the profound human capacity to find purpose and power within any experience, no matter how challenging. The most profound satisfaction of advanced mastery isn't personal achievement or even the relief of your own pain. It's knowing that your journey through suffering has created more capacity in the world for others to find strength and meaning through their own inevitable challenges. Integration challenges. Advanced mastery brings its own unique challenges that require continued growth and wisdom. As you develop greater capacity to work with suffering constructively, you may find that you're called to engage with more complex or intense forms of challenge, both personally and in service to others. Learning to maintain healthy boundaries while remaining open to continued growth through difficulty requires sophisticated discernment. You must balance your commitment to transformation with appropriate self-care and recognize when you need support, rest, or different approaches to working with pain. You may also face the challenge of remaining humble and accessible as your capacity for handling adversity develops. The goal is never to become someone who is above suffering, but rather to become someone who can dance more skillfully with whatever challenges arise while remaining genuinely helpful to others who are earlier in their own transformation journey. The journey from seeing suffering as purely negative to recognizing it as potential raw material for developing your greatest gifts ultimately reveals one of the most profound truths about human consciousness. We have the capacity to transform any experience into wisdom when we learn to work with it consciously rather than just trying to avoid or eliminate it. When you understand this principle deeply, you discover that no experience is ever wasted and that your capacity for finding meaning and strength is truly unlimited. This understanding doesn't eliminate pain from human experience, but it ensures that when suffering does occur, which it inevitably will, it becomes fuel for your evolution rather than just a problem to endure. This is perhaps the greatest secret weapon of all, the knowledge that consciousness itself has the power to transform anything into gold when approached with the right understanding and skills.